So I really screwed up, at least according to some of the comments in a fairly recent video that I did, where I show how I installed a secondary dryer lint trap. And I had all kinds of comments saying that it was going to cause carbon monoxide poisoning on gas dryers, it was going to cause a fire, it was going to cause for the dryer not to work very well, and they go on and on. But is what I did really that dangerous, or are some people just being a little over dramatic? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over every single one of those issues that was brought up in the comments, and I'm going to do some testing to see, is it true, is it not true, or is it maybe somewhere in between? Now, I can tell you there is one thing that nobody commented on that I actually think could be a big problem with this install. So I'll show you what it is and how I'm going to personally remedy it. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so here is the dryer lint trap and the install that I did in a very recent video that got all of that criticism. For those of you that don't know what this is or didn't see that video, just really quickly, this is a secondary dryer lint trap. It's not a real big secret that the lint trap that comes in your dryers still lets quite a bit of lint go by, and therefore then it gets into your exhaust and your vent, starts accumulating, and if you're not cleaning that out, not only will it just accumulate and accumulate, making that pipe more constricted, but that will lead to decreased efficiency, might be why you're seeing your dryer take longer to dry clothes, and if it gets bad enough, it can also cause a fire, which dryer fires are one of the leading causes of house fires here in the US. So the idea of this is to stop as much lint as possible from continuing on and getting into the exhaust system. There's a couple of screens in here that grab that lint. That all you have to do is open this up, pull them out, clean them out, and then close it back up. So anyways, that is the premise behind this entire install. If you want to see how I did install this, I'll have a link at the end of this video and in the description to where if you want to check that out, you can, and that will provide a little bit more context as to the purpose of this video. Now, just really quickly, before we get into all of the testing and what people think was an issue with this install, there are a few points that need to be made. Number one, this was just how I installed this lint trap. From the manufacturer, it does not come with those 90s. I noted this in the video when I installed this. So not only do those 90s not come with this dryer lint box, they aren't anywhere in the instructions. What the instructions read are the exhaust hose comes into the bottom of the box and then goes out the top and then out of the home. So that's number one. Number two, according to the instructions, at least with this box, not all of them are like this, this box recommends that it be in an up position. I think that's more so not because it doesn't function properly, but because your plan is for that exhaust again to come in the bottom and go out the top. So that's why it's in the instructions that way. But you should always follow what the manufacturer's instructions are for anything that you install, not just watch a YouTube video. All right, so really quickly, here is a quick overview of the whole install. Starting down here at the dryer, we've got a 90 coming out of the dryer here, going into a flexible exhaust hose that then comes up to the first 90 that goes into the dryer lint box, into a second 90 that then drops down and curves into the dryer vent itself. But we're not going to talk about restrictions and efficiency yet. That comes a little bit later, but obviously there's going to be some. But one of the first things that I really want to talk about, and it's not just in this particular video, it's pretty much in any dryer video that I've done where people say you really shouldn't use this type of exhaust hose. And some people say you can't use that type of exhaust hose and it's just an automatic fire hazard. So here's the deal with this. There are different types of these flexible hoses and they come in different materials. Some of them are UL listed to where they need to be and some are not. Some are kind of outdated. The ones that you see here in this video and my previous videos, these are UL listed to be used with dryers. They're updated, they are allowed to be used. Now, something else that can be a little bit tricky when it comes to these flexible hoses are, some of them look the same as these right here, but they're not the same. They use different materials. These particular ones here are aluminum. Aluminum is not flammable. It also has varying layers of it, which also helps with that. And if you're interested, even though I've talked about it being UL listed, you want to make sure you have a UL listing, and that UL listing is UL 2158A. And as long as the hose that you're purchasing is UL listed under that UL listing, then it means that it meets current code and manufacturer safety standards for this type of install. All right, so now that all of that is out of the way, let's get into some testing. One of the first things we're going to test is some people were saying that these are not allowed on gas dryers. To my knowledge, there is nothing out there that says that these cannot be allowed on gas dryers. Now, there are different types of these boxes that the manufacturer will say whether they've just rated it for an electric dryer or electric and gas. Now, my dryer is a gas dryer. If you look down there, that is the propane or gas hose that's coming into the dryer. And I will tell you that one area where I did mess up or I overlooked was when I purchased this one. According to this manufacturer, they said it is for electric dryers. It doesn't exclusively say it's not for gas, but it also doesn't mention that it's approved for it like some of the others. But if in the last video when you went to purchase one of these, I will tell you, I did have links for not just this one, but also one that had the gas option as well. So those were there. But knowing what we know here, where this one's rated for an electric dryer and I have a gas dryer, the big complaint or comment that I got from some people was this is going to cause carbon monoxide to get into the home. There is going to be carbon monoxide in the exhaust that comes out of the dryer. And so of course you don't want that leaking into your home. But let's go ahead and test this one. Let's see if this is an actual issue when it comes to gas dryers. And then we're really testing it because we have a box here that doesn't say that it's gas rated. So I'm just gonna go ahead, turn on my dryer. And it's going to take a little bit of time for the heating to start happening or the burning of that gas. So once that igniter comes on, then I'll start doing my testing. Should be any second now. All right, so now that igniter has been on for a while now. So now I'm going to take my handheld carbon monoxide detector here, and we're going to test all the way around here to see just how many parts per million of carbon monoxide are coming from this box. So I'm going to go ahead and put it all the way around where my 90s meet this box to see if we've got any coming out of there. And we've got none on that one. Let's go over to this one. And as you can see, we got none there. But now let's test the box itself. Go all the way around this door because that's the only place where there's any type of possibility for an escape. And I apologize that the numbers are upside down, but if they change, you'll still be able to read it. All right, so as you can see, we got 0 all the way around. There is no carbon monoxide coming out of where these 90s are at, where the door is at, or anywhere around these hoses. Now, some of you might think maybe my tester is broken, so I'm gonna do something I don't recommend anybody else does. I'm gonna go ahead, open up this box, and we're gonna see if it reads any carbon monoxide then. Go ahead and take the screen out so I can get in there better. So as you can see, for the most part, we're averaging around 5, 6, 7, 8 parts per million. And of course, we got up to 10. All right, so as you can see, we're ranging anywhere from about 5 parts per million up to 16, 17. But of course, this is with it wide open and I've got it stuck in the exhaust pipe. So the screen is still green. We have not gotten to a level that is considered very dangerous. And again, that's with this completely open. So for those of you that were saying this is gonna cause carbon monoxide issues in the home, at least in this case, there is 0 carbon monoxide coming out of this box. So how would I rate the comment of this is going to cause carbon monoxide issues? I would say that is over dramatized and were people talking about something that they probably didn't really have a whole lot of information on or knowledge of. And this is not me trying to show or prove that you should just go and get a dryer lint trap that's for electric dryers. Definitely get one that's also approved by the manufacturer that is also rated for gas. Now, just really quickly, something to quickly note is one mistake that can be made on this project and so many others is installing something at the wrong height or distance. And that's where using this tool right here made this so easy. I didn't even have to move my dryer in order to get my measurement to get the height of the box, and it only took me a couple of seconds. So this is the Milesea S50 Green Beam Laser Distance Meter, and it's the strongest green beam model that is available. The green laser on it is 4 times more visible than a red one, and it reaches out to 400 feet. One thing that is super useful is it uses point-to-point technology so that you can measure between any 2 points from one single location. No repositioning, no crawling, just set the first point, wait 1 second, rotate to the second point, and you've got an accurate measurement. It's built with power burst technology that keeps it accurate through dust, mist, low reflectivity surfaces, and long-range shots. And the 2.4-inch IPS screen can be adjusted to a white background in the bright sun and black in low light settings so that the numbers are always super clear and easy to read. So in all honesty, to me, the S50 is a super useful and accurate tool that has saved me tons of time and frustration. So I will put a link for it down in the description down below so you can check it out for yourself. So a huge thank you to Milesea for sponsoring this video and for making my projects a whole lot easier. But now let's get back into the video. All right, so now let's get into the big one that a lot of people were bringing up, and that came down to people saying that this was going to cause a massive reduction in efficiency and a massive increase in restriction. But also keep in mind, once we get done talking about this, there is one thing nobody talked about that is on this install right now that I see a huge issue with, and I'm definitely going to fix. All right, so I've done a lot of talking during this, but really quickly, where people see an issue really came down to, well, some people didn't like the type of hose, but these 90s, and I've got one again down there at the bottom, are where people had the biggest issue, saying that this was going to cause a dramatic increase in resistance and decrease in efficiency. So on paper, when you talk about 90 degrees in airflow or 90-degree joints, they say that you want to add, for those each 90 degree, about 5 foot of exhaust length. So depending on your local area, as far as what they allow for your total exhaust length, you'll want to take a look at that. For International Building Code purposes, I believe it's at 35 feet. But you have dryers out there that will say otherwise, that they're capable. I've seen some up to 70 feet, and mostly I've only seen those on gas dryers. So you'll want to also take a look at your dryer to see what it's capable of as far as your dryer length goes. And then of course, since I came up and then back down, there's also a bend there, and we also have an extra length of hose here on top of the dryer lint box itself and the restriction it might and does impose. But now let's see how right people are or how wrong they are and do a little bit of testing. As you can see, I've still got everything all hooked up. So we're actually going to take the before test is going to be with this completely hooked up. So the number is going to be lower when I take this windage test because there is going to be restriction on this as opposed to just one hose coming straight from the dryer and into the exhaust. So I'm going to go ahead, turn my dryer back on, go up on the roof, and take that test now. All right, so as you saw, with this all hooked up, we are getting around pretty average of 16 miles an hour to 16.5 miles per hour and in between. So now that we know what we're at right now with all of this still hooked up, now I'm gonna go ahead, take this apart, and just have one line coming straight out of the exhaust of the dryer to the dryer vent exhaust in the house to go outside. All right, so as you can see, I've got my dryer exhaust hose directly hooked up to the dryer, and then that hose goes directly into the vent that then exhausts it out of the roof of my home. So again, all I'm gonna do is go ahead and restart my dryer, go up on the roof, and take that next measurement to see what a difference it makes to not have any of that other stuff in between the dryer and then the exhaust. And of course, the number will be higher, but let's see how much. All right, so as you saw, with it hooked up like this directly to the vent, we were getting anywhere from about 18.5 miles per hour to around 19 miles per hour. Our original reading with everything hooked up was 16 to 16.5 miles per hour. And so the efficiency drop, or in this case, I guess I should say the efficiency increase when you just go from the dryer to the vent instead of it going through the lint trap and all the 90 degrees, the difference is right around 15 to 16%. And that's in the condition that I had it in, where I had those 390s plus the dryer lint trap and the extra hoses. It's nowhere near what some of you were saying in the comments at 50, 60%, and that it's just gonna cause all kinds of problems. That just is not the case. A 15% drop, in my opinion, is not going to cause those over-dramatized comments that so many people were making. Now, is that me advocating that you do what I did? Absolutely not. I advocate that you follow what the manufacturer's instructions are and what your local codes say. I'm just strictly showing you with my particular setup, my results, and the before and after with all the testing, what I'm getting. Now, is that to say I'm not going to make any changes? No. I am going to make some changes, and that's going to bring us into the thing that I talked about a little while ago that I actually think could be a pretty big issue, and I'm going to go over some modifications I'm going to do to make this much better and more efficient, because I do still believe that this is a good thing to have to make sure I'm not getting any of that extra lint or a lot of that extra lint getting into my exhaust. All right, so the first thing I'm going to look at, modify, and talk about that I actually think is a pretty big issue comes down to this 90 that I installed on my dryer that initially comes right out of the dryer. So this is what these are actually made for. They're made to go onto these dryers so that you can get it closer to the wall. And I should say so you can get it closer to the wall without risking as much crushing the exhaust. And again, this has been on here for about 2 months. When I put this on here, it was nice and tight. There was no issue that I saw whatsoever. But of course, and it makes sense that over time, all the air that's coming out of the dryer and its hot air has degraded the seal here. So let me just show you. Look at this. Look how loose this is. And no matter how much I put it up on there, it does not want to stay. So we are getting very close to where this, when this dryer kicks on, the amount of air that gets forced and hits this backside of this 90, that's quite a bit of force. It's just gonna blow this thing off. So look at that. Comes off of there pretty easily. And if this was to happen, on an electric dryer, not as big of a deal because it's just going to make your house a lot warmer, which will raise your bills because your AC is probably going to run more. But on a gas dryer, you definitely don't want this because like we talked about earlier, there is some carbon monoxide that is going to come out of the exhaust of a gas dryer. Now, this probably does actually work for a lot of people though. I mean, they sell a ton of these 90s for this exact reason. I just think for me personally, I don't have a long enough stub here coming out of my exhaust of my dryer for this silicone ring that was stuck in the 90, that goes over this, and then using compression, the 90 sticks onto it. And the only thing that was really holding that 90 on was probably that tape that I added after the fact. But since we're looking for ways to make this setup and the dryer lint trap more efficient, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the 90 from this altogether and then just hook up the first hose that's going into the bottom side of that lint trap, hook it up directly to the dryer. And by doing that, I will eliminate one of the 90s, which again equates to 5 foot of initial loss. And I would argue that on the first one, that might be where the biggest drop is because it's losing that momentum that it's being pushed with right off the bat. All right, so as you can see, now I'm directly connected to the dryer, goes up into my first 90 into the box and then out. All right, so I'm not done yet. Another modification that I'm going to do to this is I'm going to try and decrease my hose length some. So I'm going to cut these both down, make them shorter so I have less length of a run for the air to have to be pushed through, which should also really increase the efficiency of still having this hooked up. I am personally going to leave my 90s on. Again, I did it for aesthetic reasons, but the most efficient way would absolutely be to remove these 90s and then directly connect the hoses to each side of the dryer lint box. So I'm still sacrificing some efficiency for aesthetics. It's a laundry room, really shouldn't care. but my OCD doesn't allow for it. All right, so as you can see, I have dramatically reduced the length of my exhaust hoses to where we don't really have much slack in it, or I should say any excess slack. As you can see, actually you can't see all the way to the bottom of it, but these two together combined come out to about 6 foot of total length that was removed. All right, so for me personally, these are the two mods that I'm gonna do. So now I'm gonna go ahead and turn my dryer on. I'm gonna go back on the roof, do another test, and see how much closer I can get to that about 19 miles per hour that we got when it was directly hooked up to the dryer and to the vent. And then also I wanna see how much of an improvement over having all of this hooked up originally from that 16 to 16.5 miles per hour, how much can we get above that? So I'll go ahead, turn my dryer back on, and go back up on the roof. So now, as you can see, we're averaging around 17.5 to 18 miles per hour. All right, so as you saw, some pretty great results from making those modifications to my particular unit. We started with everything hooked up at around 16 or 16.5 miles per hour. That's at the lowest efficiency, again, with everything hooked up. Then we tested it without anything hooked up in between the dryer and the vent, and we were getting around, I think it was 18.5 to 19 miles per hour. And then once we hooked everything back up, but we removed that 190 down at the base of the dryer and shortened our hoses by about 6 feet, we were getting closer to around 18 miles per hour. Now at 18 miles per hour, in comparison with everything hooked up at that 16 or 16.5, that is a pretty large increase in efficiency just by doing what I did. And then in comparison with nothing being hooked up at all to the modifications, when nothing was hooked up, again, we were around 18.5, 19 miles per hour. Our last reading with the modifications was right around 17.75 to 18 miles per hour. That is really only an efficiency drop of around 7%. So that's definitely something I personally can live with. Definitely not something that's gonna cause me anyway any serious issues. It's not a fire risk in my opinion. It's not really gonna increase dry times, and we're getting pretty darn near to that original airflow. And again, for me personally, I do think having this secondary lint trap is worth that ever so slight reduction in efficiency. But again, that's just me personally. So in my opinion, really great results. We covered pretty much all of the things that were said in that previous video. If you saw anything in this video that is of interest to you, like always, for your convenience, I will have links for everything down in the description down below. I will also have a QR code up on the screen now that when you scan it or click those links, it'll take you directly to whatever you want to check out, so you can look at all of this for yourself. Now, just really quickly, if you found this update video to be interesting or valuable, then you may very well want to also check out the original video that I did that kind of gives more context as to why I made this video. I show how I installed it, which again, I am not necessarily recommending that for anybody else because everybody's situation and equipment is going to be different, along with any possible codes in your area. But in that video, I just document how I did it, what it does for me. So that's a video that you might want to check out. Other than that, I also have some other dryer videos. Something super important still, even with this lint trap installed, is making sure that we're doing regular maintenance. So I also have a video on how easily that can be done as well. I'll post those videos up on the screen now. Whichever one interests you the most, all you have to do is click on it. It'll take you directly to it. But I hope that you found value in this video. If you did, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button right down below. And of course, if you have any questions or comments still, leave those down in the comment section. I'm Adam with How to Home, and I'll catch you in one of the next videos.